Hi everybody, Kyle Austin, Matt Wenzel, MLive.com here at Spartan Stadium. Northwestern this week at Northwestern, 6-1. Michigan State heads there. We're here with our three big questions. Matt, question number one. Still the biggest thing that's sticking out to me about this team is its defense, the turnaround it had from last year. If you could pin one biggest factor to the turnaround, what would you say it is?
Just the increased pressure, the pass rush getting better. Last year was just non-existent for Michigan State. They finished with 11 sacks, so it was by far the worst total in Mark D'Antonio's tenure. They switched it up a little bit in the offseason. Ron Burton was coaching the entire defensive line now. He's focused on the tackles. Mark Snyder moved to the ends. They kept saying early in the season we're going to see the results. Really didn't until after a couple weeks in, and I think they have 18 sacks right now, if I remember correctly. And even like this past week, the numbers weren't huge. You wouldn't think it, but they did consistently get pressure on Peyton Ramsey, made him a little bit uncomfortable. I think Kenny Lewerke's been quite a surprise this year for a former walk-on who really wasn't recruited by anybody other than D2 schools. He's been pretty good. Linebacker's been active in the pressure. True freshman Jacob Panasuk had a pretty big game last week as well, coming off his first career sack. So yeah, and all that helps the secondary too, because I mean that just one benefits the other, obviously.
Yeah, right. I think their cornerbacks and their safeties are improved from last year, but I also think those guys last year they were so long that they had to defend for. I mean, those guys had all game. Those pass plays seem like they go on forever, and that's gonna be tough for any cornerback. So yeah, you're right. There's a trickle down effect, and I think they kind of I think they anticipated that as being the biggest problem, and I think they hoped things would kind of fall into place if they got that figured out. I think that's what we've seen take place. Question number two, regarding the other side of the ball, the offense. I think a lot of people were hoping, a lot of Michigan State fans were hoping with the improved weather last week that we'd see Brian Lewerke be able to swing a little bit more. Didn't quite work out. Where do you kind of see where he is right now in his season?
I think if you look at the season overall, the whole 7 games, I think he's probably been better than the coaching staff would have probably hoped overall, just as far as his abilities, considering he'd only started. I mean, he was a redshirt sophomore with 2 starts last year, and he had a broken leg. I think I think what you're really looking for is that next step with him. The last 2 weeks with the games played in the rain, there were limitations in play calling, but this past week it was nice and dry. It was 75 degrees. You wanted to see a little more. He was 11 of 23 passing through 3 quarters before hitting his final 5. So I want to see more of that late game stuff than the early.
I agree. It's obviously been a little up and down. It's not going to be a straight line. To me, the biggest thing I go back to, though, is that this defense is at a level right now where they don't need this huge passing attack. They don't need them out there laying it up. The biggest thing they need is not to make mistakes, not to put the defense in poor position, not to give up points directly off turnovers. You look at their worst game, their Notre Dame game, that's what happens. So, to me, priority number one for him is still going to be hold on to the ball, prevent turnovers, not throw interceptions, and he's still doing that. And the offense, yeah, a little bit slow coming, but I think that's the biggest positive right now for him. Question number 3, looking kind of to this week and beyond, you're looking at the Big Ten East race, and we're more than halfway through the season. I think it's time. You got 3 undefeated teams: Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. They're all 3 playing one another really in the next 3 weeks. Penn State, Ohio State this week. After this week, Michigan State's got them back to back. Where do you see them? I mean, Michigan State's the team people didn't expect in this race. Are they a spoiler? How much of a contender are they? Where do you kind of rate them right now?
I would lean a little more towards spoiler than in the category that Penn State and Ohio State fit in. I mean, look at how the teams entered the season. Just with what happened last year. Michigan State was coming off 3-9. Now they're 6-1 and 4-0. So that's obviously a huge improvement.
Right.
But I mean, Penn State's still number 2 in the country. Ohio State's number 6. These are the teams that everybody thought coming into the year would be there at the top. So yeah, for Michigan State, I mean, it's get through this week. If you can get past Northwestern, and then you can really see what you can do. I mean, with those back-to-back games against those 2 teams, you win just one of those, and I mean, that could be, it could be their conference. So we'll see, in the next 2 weeks, but obviously, or in the next 3 weeks. But you obviously have to get past Northwestern first before you can really start worrying about that.
They put themselves in pretty darn good position because the way they played. I mean, it's not out of their own possibility to think that they could nip one of those 2 teams. No. I mean, Ohio State lost 2 by a point last year. They played them very well the last 4 or 5 years under Mark D'Antonio. Penn State, I still think that, here that's a winnable game. I'm not picking them to win it, by the way. I'm not picking them to win either one, but I think they've got a chance to pull off one of those. And it would go down to tiebreakers, but you'd have a chance to win the division at that point. So I think this team can start to hope a little bit. Fans of this team can start to hope a little bit because it's a feasible for now. I would not have seen a whole lot of feasible avenues to the Big Ten title game in March, but I think I can see one now. I think that gives Michigan State fans hope. That'll do it here from Spartan Stadium. 3:30 kickoff in Evanston, 3:30 Eastern Time kickoff in Evanston, and check mlive.com/Spartans for all the coverage.